How to discover a woman's past without asking anything. Stoicism, Old Stoic wisdom. Most men make a common mistake when getting to know a woman. They dive into her past. They ask about her previous relationships, her childhood, her past heartbreaks. After all, you're just trying to understand who she is. But here's the truth. The moment you ask, she begins to curate her responses, not because she's being deceitful, but because it's a natural form of self-protection. What you end up hearing is the version of her past that she's comfortable sharing. But what if you didn't need to ask? What if you could understand her past not by the stories she tells, but through the subtle clues she unknowingly reveals? People don't just talk about their history, they live it. It's evident in their habits, their reactions, their silences, the way they respond to certain words, and the way they look at you when something triggers a memory. Her past is imprinted on her, even when she isn't aware of it. You don't need to be a detective, and you certainly don't need to interrogate her. What you need is to observe. By paying attention to these unspoken signs, you'll gain a deeper understanding of her, more than even her closest friends might know. You'll be able to tell if she's still affected by someone from her past, whether she's truly healed, if she's capable of building a future with you, or if she's still trapped in the emotional ruins of what came before. In this video, I'll teach you how to read these subtle signs, what they reveal about her, and how to safeguard yourself from being caught off guard by a narrative you didn't ask to be part of. 1. Her relationship with attention. To truly understand a woman's emotional past, especially without asking directly, you must observe the way she handles attention. Pay close attention to the subtle cues, how she responds when men direct their gaze her way, or when the spotlight shifts to her. It's not just about the compliments or flattery she receives. You need to observe how she moves in a room, her online interactions, and her general comfort when she's the center of attention. Notice if she downplays it, staying grounded like a pillar in a storm, or if she lights up like the first time she's ever been noticed. This reveals much more than her reaction to a simple compliment. It reveals how she has been conditioned to handle admiration. Does she talk about men constantly? Does she casually mention the guys in her DMS, or how she's constantly fending off flirtation at the gym? These aren't just stories. These are windows into her past. And the message is clear. It's not vanity that drives this. It's a deeper, more pressing need. A woman who has been neglected or made to feel invisible in previous relationships, or even during childhood, learns to measure her worth by how many eyes are on her. Often, she doesn't even realize it. It's not just about wanting attention, it's about needing it. The emotional validation she craves becomes the barometer for her self-worth, and she may not be fully conscious of it. Now, you must recognize the crucial difference between a woman who enjoys attention and one who desperately needs it to feel whole. The former is light-hearted, a mere enjoyment. The latter, however, is a serious concern. It's a sign of emotional dependence, and it's dangerous. When her source of validation, whether it's you or anyone else, begins to diminish, she might seek it elsewhere. But this isn't disloyalty in the traditional sense. It's an emotional addiction, one that she's either unaware of or too deeply entrenched in to notice. It's a cycle of craving, receiving, and then needing more, like an unquenchable thirst. This isn't something you will discover by analysing her wardrobe or counting the selfies she posts. You must dig deeper, asking why she does it. Does she crave admiration because it feeds her ego, or does she long for real, meaningful connection? This one question alone, one that stems from the Old Stoic wisdom, can unlock more insight into her past relationships than any conversation could. Because here's the truth. When you follow Stoic principles, you learn not to be distracted by the surface. You begin to see the underlying need, the emotional void that may have been shaped by years of neglect or longing. That's what you must focus on, the need, not the act. You need an iron mind to see the signals for what they are, not an invitation for your attention, but a cry for validation. Only then will you understand how her past experiences have shaped her behaviour today. And if you are wise in the ways of Stoicism, you will approach this with the utmost clarity, refusing to be misled by fleeting appearances. 2. How she talks about other women. Listen closely to how she talks about other women. Not just her words, but the tone, the little sighs, the subtle undertones. Whether it's about her friends, co-workers, or even random women she encounters, her speech is a window into her emotional world. These moments, though fleeting, reveal far more than you might realize. Don't miss it. It's in the way she speaks. Is her voice warm and supportive when she mentions other women? Does she celebrate their successes or offer a word of kindness? Or is it tinged with sarcasm, judgment, or competition? Pay attention, because this isn't just idle gossip. It's a reflection of her inner landscape. If she constantly paints other women as fake, a mess, or as trying too hard, it's not just an innocent observation. No, it's a mirror. It's a mirror reflecting back her own struggles, her unresolved insecurities, or past betrayals. She's not merely sharing an opinion. She's projecting her own emotional wounds. Every criticism is a layer of her own history, a piece of her emotional past that has yet to heal. You must see it for what it is. Women often communicate their past pain through projection. A woman who relentlessly criticizes others for being too flirty may have experienced betrayal in the form of cheating. Her words aren't just about the other woman. They're about her own hurt, her own lack of trust. Or perhaps a woman who's always skeptical about other women's success might be carrying the weight of constantly feeling behind in her own life. It's not an attack on others. It's an admission that she feels stuck in her own journey. And then there's the statement, "I just don't get along with other women." Don't be fooled. That's not independence. That's trauma. It's a defense mechanism disguised as a preference. It's the result of past emotional scars, perhaps from friendships that once burned her, or maybe competition became her way of protecting herself. If she's at peace with herself, you'll see that reflected in her attitude toward other women. A woman who has made peace with her own past, her own insecurities, and her own sense of self doesn't feel threatened by others. That is the path of wisdom. You can tell a lot about a person by how they relate to others, particularly women. If every woman is a threat, ask yourself, what past experiences have shaped her to see life as a battlefield? These moments, these little revelations, are not hard to uncover. You don't have to ask directly. You don't have to pry into her past. Simply listen. Listen to the patterns in her words, her tone, and her attitudes. You'll learn everything you need to know. This is practical Stoicism at its core, observing without judgment, seeking the truth in what is unsaid. Don't rush to conclusions. Instead, take time to understand the deeper context. It's not about what she's saying, it's about what she's not saying, what's hidden beneath the surface. This is where the Stoic rules of wisdom come into play. Recognize the patterns, understand the emotional history, and make decisions based on that insight. Her words are a reflection of her past, and by following these paths of wisdom, you can begin to unravel the deeper truths without asking a single question. 3. Conflict style. To truly understand a woman, observe her behaviour when things go wrong. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." You must be sharp enough to notice how she handles conflict, as this is when her past often reveals itself. When everything is going smoothly, it's easy to be deceived by her surface demeanour. But when life throws challenges her way, her true emotional landscape surfaces. Conflict doesn't need to escalate into shouting matches or breakdowns to reveal the truth. Watch how she reacts when plans fall through, when she's forgotten, or when she feels ignored. Is she calm, searching for resolution, or does she retreat and shut down? Does she lash out or try to make you feel guilty? These responses are not arbitrary. They are echoes of her past. A woman who has experienced abandonment, emotional neglect, or betrayal will react to conflict with fear or defensiveness. She might withdraw, having learned that showing emotion leads to punishment or rejection. Alternatively, she might attack, protecting herself from being vulnerable because vulnerability has caused her pain in the past. In either case, her reaction is a survival mechanism, learned through years of emotional conditioning. This pattern of behaviour, as ancient Stoic wisdom teaches, is not about you, but about the remnants of her emotional history. A woman's reactions to conflict are not isolated events. They are a reenactment of the defense mechanisms she has developed over time. If she immediately assumes the worst of you, it's likely because of the emotional stories written by others long before you came into the picture. What you are witnessing is not just a disagreement, it's a reflection of how she has learned to protect herself. You don't need to ask probing questions to uncover her past. People don't always articulate their histories, they act them out. The past is often revealed in the ways they handle discomfort, not in the words they speak. As Epictetus said, man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. When conflict arises, her old wounds may come to the surface. Your job isn't to fix these wounds, but to recognize them and ask yourself if you're willing to be part of her healing process, or if you will be caught in the crossfire of her unresolved emotional battles. Stoicism teaches us that we must focus on what we can control, and in this case, you can control your response. You can choose to be a steady presence, offering patience and understanding, or you can let yourself be dragged into the chaos of someone else's emotional war. But remember, this is your choice. If you wish to win in the realm of relationships, you must first understand the depths of conflict and recognize how the past shapes the present. Don't ignore the signs. Stoicismwin comes not from avoiding conflict, but from mastering how you respond to it. If you found this valuable, comment below, and share it with someone who could benefit. Don't forget to subscribe for more wisdom. Comment to remember: I am in control of my response to conflict. This affirmation reflects the Stoic principle of mastering your own reactions, no matter the emotional chaos around you. Share your thoughts in the comments. 4. Her relationship timeline without asking directly. Understanding a woman's romantic past without asking her directly is an art, a subtle dance that requires the patience and insight of an iron mind, informed by the timeless principles of Stoicism. You must realize that pressing her with direct questions like, "When was your last relationship?" is futile and often counterproductive. That's the surface-level inquiry, the edited version of the story she's comfortable presenting, the one she feels safe sharing. But if you want to truly uncover the layers of her past, to understand the nuanced tapestry that shaped her, you have to listen carefully, not just to the words, but to the silences, the pauses, and the little hints dropped along the way. The old Stoic wisdom teaches us to observe and reflect, to listen with more than just our ears. A casual phrase like, "I used to love that little sushi place. We went there all the time," should make you stop and think. Who's this we? It's not a friend. It's a ghost of a past relationship. That's the breadcrumb you need to follow. It's these seemingly insignificant details that carry the weight of deeper meaning, if you're perceptive enough to catch them. You see, her romantic history is hidden in the way she talks, not necessarily in what she says outright. A woman who mentions, "That was 2 years ago," isn't just giving you a random date. She's offering you a glimpse into her timeline, her emotional growth, the distance between the present and the past. Pay attention to the subtle timing cues that reveal her emotional landscape. If she avoids specifying time altogether or glosses over key emotional milestones as if they're unimportant, that's a sign. It signals unresolved emotions, a moment in her past that might still be alive in her memory, and that's when the true work begins. Paying attention not just to the words, but the emotion behind them. You'll also hear the echoes of past relationships in the way she talks about pivotal transitions. "After everything fell apart," or "I had to rebuild myself," are far more than simple phrases. They carry the weight of recovery and personal transformation. These words speak of deep emotional upheaval, of struggle and resilience. They don't just hint at a breakup. They speak of a journey. A woman who speaks of rebuilding, of learning to stand on her own again, is telling you a lot more than she realizes. It's not always about the dates or the names of past lovers. It's about how she feels when she speaks of the past. She may not lay it out in neat chronological order, but if you listen closely, you'll hear the signs. The key here is not to ask directly, but to be the kind of man who listens between the lines, who notices what's unspoken. People are more open when they feel comfortable and unpressured. As a man who practices Stoic principles, you must recognize that silence often speaks louder than words. Don't be the man who demands information through interrogation. Be the one who listens patiently, who lets her reveal herself at her own pace. Sometimes, her silence is the loudest clue of all. That is the power of Old Stoic wisdom in action, being attuned to the subtle, unspoken truth that others may miss. The more you learn to observe and listen, the more you'll understand. It's a skill, a discipline of the mind and heart, and it's one that will serve you well in understanding not just her past, but her present too. 5. Her views on men in general. One of the most revealing things a woman will ever show you without meaning to is how she talks about men in general. And I don't mean how she talks about you, I mean how she talks about men as a concept. What does she say when she talks about her exes, male friends, or even random guys on TV? Is her tone light and playful when discussing men? Or does she grow defensive, cynical, or bitter? That shift in tone, subtle yet significant, carries more weight than any of her words. When she says, "Men are the worst," and laughs it off with a half smile, don't just brush it off as a harmless joke. No, my friend, this isn't idle chatter. This is memory in motion. The weight of past hurts, betrayal, or disappointment lurks beneath those words. Remember this, the phrase "men are the worst" isn't simply an opinion. It's a fragment of her history, a small shard of the armor she built after past wounds. And while her smile might seem innocent, don't be fooled. There's often history behind that sting. Be aware of how often she repeats these sentiments. If they come up more than once, with that sharpness behind her words, it isn't just the joke. It's her soul speaking. Her assumptions are shaped by history. If she seems to assume that all men are liars, cheaters, or emotionally unavailable, that's not something she picked up in a book. She didn't learn that in a classroom. No, those beliefs were forged in the crucible of her past relationships. They were made in the fire of personal experience. You must understand this. Just because she flirts, laughs, or enjoys your company doesn't mean those deeply ingrained assumptions vanish. You might be a man who has none of those traits. You might be sincere, dependable, and loving, but that doesn't erase the emotional scars that run deep in her memory. Don't forget this fact. Her assumptions are deeply rooted in pain, and if you're not careful, you could become the target of that pain without even knowing it. This is where the wisdom of Stoic rules comes into play. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, our actions, our thoughts, our reactions. So while her past is hers to carry, how you respond to it is yours. Do not judge her. Do not blame her. Be understanding. See her for what she is, a person shaped by her experiences. You are not witnessing her flaws, but the remnants of a past she can't erase. Understanding her view of men will guide you. Once you begin to see how her experiences have molded her beliefs about men, you will understand her reactions better. Maybe she seems overly suspicious when you go quiet for a moment. Maybe she expects you to leave before you even realize she's pulling away. This is not some random mood swing. No, this is a well-worn path she's been down many times before. Her fears, her doubts, her insecurities, they all manifest in these seemingly small moments. Recognize this as part of her internal world. When you understand it, you can navigate these emotional landscapes with clarity and calm, using the wisdom of practical Stoicism. The challenge here is not simply understanding her, but understanding the experiences that shaped her. Once you know the terrain of her heart, you can choose how to engage with it. Are you walking into a relationship with eyes wide open, or are you stepping into someone else's emotional minefield? You must decide. Understanding her beliefs about men doesn't mean you judge her for them. It means you see her more clearly. This awareness gives you the power to choose. Will you walk into this relationship with open eyes, ready to navigate her past with grace? Or will you find yourself tripped up by the debris of someone else's past? The choice is yours. This is where Stoic wisdom truly comes into play. Just as the Stoics advised, focus on what you can control. You cannot control her past, nor can you erase her memories, but you can control how you respond to them, how you engage with her, and how you choose to move forward. The path you choose will either deepen your connection or pull you into a cycle of frustration and misunderstanding. Choose wisely. Remember, wisdom doesn't come from asking more questions. It comes from seeing with clarity. You must learn to see beyond the surface, to understand the unspoken truths and hidden scars that shape her. This is the path of wisdom. This is the path of a true Stoic. If you've made it this far, you are now equipped with a powerful understanding of the woman's past and how it shapes her present. The next step is in your hands. Will you approach this with empathy and wisdom, or let her past define your relationship? Please comment below with, "I will walk with eyes wide open, ready to navigate the past with grace." Let's keep this conversation going. 6. How she talks about her family. To truly understand how a woman forms emotional connections, focus on how she speaks about her family, particularly her parents. You don't need to probe for hidden traumas or seek out personal confessions. Pay attention to the subtlety of her tone and the way she frames her relationships. The words she chooses, the way she talks about her father or mother, speak volumes about her emotional landscape. When she mentions her father, is there warmth, distance, resentment, or indifference? Pay close attention to how she describes these relationships. A simple remark like, "Yeah, my dad was around. I guess we weren't super close, but whatever," can reveal a great deal. That whatever is not casual. It carries layers of emotional weight. Indifference often masks deeper feelings, disappointment, neglect, or unmet expectations that have been buried so long. They've become normalized. The relationship a woman had with her father in particular sets the foundation for how she views men, trust, and emotional security. If love in her early life was something she had to earn, she'll likely feel compelled to prove her worth in a relationship, to constantly seek validation. If affection was erratic, present one day, withdrawn the next, she may expect that same unpredictability in her romantic connections. The influence of her upbringing on her perception of love is profound and enduring. Conversely, if her home was emotionally nurturing and secure, that stability will shape how she manages conflict, communicates her needs, and how quickly she calms down in the face of adversity. The way she handles herself in relationships, her response to challenges, her ability to remain calm, and her openness can be traced back to how she was raised. You are not probing into her private past. You are observing. Notice how she reacts when you ask about holidays, her tone when she speaks of her mother, or her body language when the topic of family time arises. Does she light up when discussing childhood memories, or does she roll her eyes at the very idea? These are the subtle indicators that provide access to her emotional foundation. People rarely, if ever, outgrow the emotional language they were raised with. The patterns she developed in her family environment are ingrained in her. Understanding this dynamic is key to comprehending how she will love you. If you want to know how she's capable of loving, look at how she learned to love in her family. In modern life, we often overlook these deeper emotional currents, but when we embrace the Stoic wisdom of Epictetus, we understand that it's not about what others tell us directly, but about observing their actions, their words, and their behavior. Stoicism teaches us to discern truth, not through questioning or seeking dramatic confessions, but through quiet observation. Look for consistency in her behavior, for how she carries herself through moments of calm and crisis. This is where true wisdom lies. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Apply this idea to relationships. It's not about demanding to know every detail of her past. It's about understanding how her past shapes her present actions and how that will influence your future together. By practicing this form of observation, you'll master the art of understanding without intrusion, enabling you to win not just her heart, but your own emotional mastery as well. 7. What makes her emotional and what doesn't? Understanding what makes a woman emotional and, perhaps more importantly, what doesn't is a window into her past. It's not about simply noticing the obvious moments, those tears or dramatic outbursts. You're after the subtle signs, the things that catch her off guard. revealing a history that lies beneath the surface. It could be as simple as a movie scene depicting abandonment, where she suddenly goes quiet, as if her thoughts were pulled away to a place you'll never know. Or maybe it's a song about betrayal that she skips every time it plays, her fingers swiping across the screen like a quiet rejection of something painful. That's not random. It's a reflection of old wounds, scars from experiences that are still alive in her heart, a memory of hurt she has yet to fully shake off. On the other hand, there are moments when she seems completely unaffected by what would rattle most people. The death of a beloved character in a film or a social snub might leave her unmoved, as if she has learned to shut off parts of herself in order to survive. It's as if the emotions that once threatened to overwhelm her were buried deep, stashed away behind a facade of numbness that serves as her armor. It's not always obvious what triggers her. Sometimes it's something as innocent as being left out of a group invite or someone raising their voice in frustration. These moments might seem small, but her reaction, whether it's a sharp outburst or a complete emotional shutdown, says more than words ever could. Don't make the mistake of thinking that overreaction or emotional withdrawal is a coincidence. It's a pattern, a mark of past trauma or experiences that she hasn't fully dealt with. That emotional reaction, whether it's intense or distant, is a message. It whispers, "I've been hurt before. This has happened to me before." And when it's intense, it might say, "I'm still not over it." The emotional response isn't a random outburst. It's a breadcrumb that leads you back to her history, her emotional story, a tale of pain or unresolved struggle. But beware, sometimes the coldness you see, the detachment when you share your own vulnerable moments, speaks volumes too. A woman who brushes off others' pain or seems distant when emotions are laid bare is sending a warning signal. Detachment can sometimes be strength, but it can also be a defense mechanism built out of necessity, a wall constructed too early, before she even knew how to deal with the world around her. This isn't something you're going to uncover by asking directly. Don't think you'll find the answers with a simple, "What makes you emotional?" The true clues are found in the way she reacts to the world, in the things that stir her, sometimes deeply, sometimes not at all. These moments are like emotional footprints, subtle traces left behind by a woman's past that she may never willingly share with you. And yet, the more observant you are, the more you will see the difference between a woman who has learned to face her emotional history and one who is still trapped in it, running from what she has yet to heal. That's where the old Stoic wisdom comes into play. An iron mind can see through the surface, and Stoic principles teach us to listen to the silence in her responses, rather than focusing on the obvious. You must learn to observe, not to ask, because those emotional signals speak far louder than words ever will. If you find this valuable, like, comment below, and share it with someone who could benefit. Don't forget to subscribe for more wisdom. Comment to remember. True understanding comes from observing, not asking. 8. Final tip. Observation over interrogation. In the pursuit of understanding, the wisest men don't ask a million questions. They don't rush into digging for stories or demanding answers. No, they take a step back and watch. It's the difference between interrogation and observation. The smart man understands that the truth is often whispered through silence, revealed in offhand comments, or exposed in those subtle patterns of behavior that speak louder than any words could. You see, anyone can ask, "What happened in your last relationship?" But that question, though it might get an answer, only offers the polished version. What you get is a rehearsed story, one she's crafted, perhaps even without realizing it, to protect herself. But the man who truly understands the Stoic rules of human interaction knows better. He knows that the truth often lies in the unnoticed moments, the brief flinch when plans are cancelled, the hesitation when intimacy rises, or the light in her eyes when she's finally recognized for something deeper than just her appearance. These are not random reactions. They are emotional fingerprints. Each one tells a story, if you're observant enough to read it. Don't mistake observation for cold detachment. It's not about being a calculating strategist who watches from the shadows, hoping to catch someone in a lie. It's about emotional literacy. It's about being able to read the room, to understand not just the spoken words, but the unspoken ones. It's about being aware of the subtle shifts that indicate what's really going on beneath the surface. That's the essence of practical Stoicism, the ability to observe with clarity, the ability to perceive what others might miss, because they're too busy chasing answers. When you lean on words alone, you often end up buying into the story she tells herself to survive. She might say what sounds right, but does it feel right? Is there a hidden hesitation in her tone? A slight glance that betrays uncertainty? That's where the true insight lies. When you rely on observation, you begin to see her not just as the persona she projects, but as the person beneath, perhaps someone still carrying old wounds, or someone who's ready for growth, or maybe someone who isn't. Either way, you know where you stand. And that kind of clarity is power. That's what gives you the strength to act, to respond, or to move forward. So don't chase answers, invite them. Let her reveal herself slowly, unknowingly, because the truth always leaks out in behaviour. The only question is, are you sharp enough to see it? As you walk the paths of wisdom, remember this. Real insight comes not from the questions you ask, but from the questions you never need to. Instead, you observe, you listen, you learn, and then you act with the kind of wisdom that only a man who has embraced the Stoic way of life can possess. 9. How she handles praise and criticism. To understand a woman's past without asking her directly, pay attention to how she handles praise and criticism. Does she gracefully accept praise, or does she downplay it, deflect it, or even get uncomfortable? Similarly, when faced with constructive criticism, does she react defensively or with an openness to growth? These reactions aren't mere coincidences. They are shaped by her past experiences. A woman who grew up in an environment where her achievements were overlooked or dismissed may struggle to accept praise, feeling it is undeserved or uncomfortable. If she constantly downplays her successes or deflects attention, it signals a past where seeking validation led to disappointment and rejection. Contrast this with a woman who receives compliments with grace and takes criticism with poise, indicating a deeper, secure sense of self-worth. This is where Stoicism comes into play. As Epictetus wisely put it, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This principle highlights the power of equanimity, the ability to maintain balance and composure in the face of external judgment. A woman who embodies this Stoic ideal has learned to remain unaffected by praise or criticism, understanding that neither defines her worth. When you observe her reactions, don't just see them as fleeting moments. Ask yourself, is she at peace with who she is, or does her response reveal a deeper story of rejection or overcompensation? Stoicism teaches us that true mastery lies in cultivating inner strength and self-awareness, impervious to the judgments of others. In modern life, where validation often comes from external sources, this ability to remain grounded is rare and powerful. A woman who has mastered this balance exudes strength and wisdom. You must recognize that this quality isn't just a result of inherent character, but often the product of hard lessons learned over time. To truly understand someone, watch how they react to these small moments, because their responses speak volumes about the story they may never share. So, remember, the next time you encounter such moments, don't just observe, analyze. The Stoic approach to life reveals deeper truths that might not be apparent at first glance, but when understood, they unlock wisdom that transcends the surface. Apply this wisdom in your own life. Cultivate equanimity, understand yourself, master your emotions, win with Stoicism. If you're ready to apply Stoic wisdom to uncover hidden truths and master your emotions, drop a comment now. I stay grounded no matter the judgment. Like this video, subscribe for more wisdom, and remember, true strength lies in inner peace. 10. Her relationship with time and future planning. Don't ignore how a woman views her past. It's the silent blueprint that shapes her present and future. Stoicism teaches us that the past is beyond our control, but it's how we react to it that matters. The Old Stoic wisdom emphasizes living in the present, yet it's impossible to ignore how deeply the past can affect us, especially when it comes to future planning. If you want to understand whether she's truly healed or still held hostage by her old wounds, look no further than her approach to the future. Don't ask her about her past directly. Instead, observe how she speaks about tomorrow. Does she make plans with excitement? Does she talk about building a future with you? Or is there hesitation, uncertainty, or avoidance? A woman who has truly healed from the scars of past emotional trauma will confidently look ahead, making plans and believing in the possibility of a future together. She'll speak with assurance and excitement, as someone who knows that the future can be shaped with someone who shares her vision. That's the power of an iron mind, someone who has accepted her past, but doesn't allow it to dictate her future. But if she still carries the burden of old wounds, whether from failed relationships or deep emotional scars, she may retreat when it comes to long-term plans. She may not want to commit to something that feels too permanent, too uncertain, or simply too risky. And that's not always about love. It's about how safe she feels. If her past was one where stability was absent, whether in her family, relationships, or career, she may struggle to trust that anything long-term can actually last. This hesitation isn't a reflection of you. It's a her inner battle. By keenly observing how she talks about future planning, whether she's excited, open, and willing to make commitments, you'll see the subtle, hidden impact of her past. That is the wisdom of the Stoic principles. By focusing on the present, you can gain insight into what has been left unresolved in her past. The way she approaches future goals will reveal just how much emotional baggage is still ruling her life. Remember, the goal isn't to pry into her history, but to notice the patterns of behavior that speak volumes without a single question. If you want a woman who is ready to move forward, you must be patient, understanding, and perceptive, allowing her the space to heal on her own terms. Be aware that this subtle dance with time, how she thinks about the future, can be a mirror into her past. Don't rush her. Give her the time to decide whether she is ready to build something lasting with you, free from the shadow of what came before. If you've made it this far, you're already miles ahead of most guys out there. Because now you're not just hearing what a woman says, you're seeing who she is. And once you learn to observe with this kind of clarity, your dating life changes. You stop wasting time, you stop falling for the highlight reel, and you start connecting with women in a way that's real, grounded, and on your terms. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Was there something specific that resonated with you? Drop a comment below and let's start a conversation. And if you want to dive deeper into the psychology behind relationships, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.